The Passion of the Christ was not just a movie, it was a cinematic event that left an indelible mark on its viewers. Yet, beneath its profound impact lay an undercurrent of discomfort, a feeling that something deeper, something unsettling had been unleashed. The film was controversial from the very start, sparking an intense wave of resistance. Mel Gibson, the visionary director behind it, recently shared a remarkable story during his appearance on Joe Rogan's podcast, one that many people had never fully understood. The untold truths behind the Passion of the Christ and the secrets surrounding its upcoming sequel. What if the most controversial film of the century hid profound truths, secrets that were never meant to be revealed? What if the world had missed something essential about the film? The conversation between Joe Rogan and Mel Gibson started off innocently enough, touching on topics like filmmaking, faith, and Hollywood politics. But as Gibson began to unfold the truth behind the Passion of the Christ, the tone of the discussion shifted dramatically. The room fell into a hush. Rogan, a seasoned interviewer who had spoken with presidents, athletes, and whistleblowers, was visibly moved. In fact, he seemed shaken by what Gibson was revealing. This was not merely another publicity stunt. This wasn't a fabricated controversy designed to grab attention. What Gibson was doing was something much deeper. He was pulling back the curtain on a Hollywood system that had fought with every ounce of its strength to keep this story locked away. And once you understand what so many had missed about the Passion of the Christ, your perception of the film will never be the same. Beneath its surface, there exists a hidden narrative, one that uncovers far more than just powerful filmmaking. To grasp what Gibson exposed, we must go back to the inception of this monumental project. The Passion of the Christ was never intended to be just another biblical epic. Gibson didn't want to create a film with grand, sweeping landscapes or rely on the familiar, predictable storytelling conventions that Hollywood had become known for. Instead, he envisioned something much more visceral, raw, and unflinching. He wanted to make a film that would grip its audience with such intensity that they would feel the weight of the story long after they left the theater. A film that would not let go until they understood deeply the true cost of sacrifice. Gibson explained to Rogan that the heart of the film's narrative was a universal truth. We are all responsible for Christ's death. The film was never intended to be a distant, historical recounting of an ancient event. Instead, it was meant to remind every viewer that Christ's sacrifice wasn't just an event from the past. It was something profoundly relevant to their lives in the present. To bring this truth to life, Gibson spent years studying the four Gospels, carefully dissecting every verse that described the final hours of Jesus Christ's life. But what set Gibson apart from other filmmakers was his willingness to dig deeper. He didn't rely solely on the scripture. He ventured into ancient texts, into obscure theological sources, weaving them together to create a film that was more than just a retelling of events. It was a profound meditation on the weight of those events, the spiritual warfare, the human cost, and the divine purpose woven into every moment of suffering. The opening scene alone tells you everything you need to know about the kind of film this would be. We are thrust into the Garden of Gethsemane, the darkness closing in, an oppressive weight hanging over everything. Jesus, kneeling in prayer, is surrounded by his closest companions, the very ones who should be standing by his side, but they are asleep. The vulnerability of this scene is overwhelming. Here, we see a man who is fully divine and yet fully human, sweating blood as a crushing weight presses down on him. And then, in the midst of this profound anguish, Satan appears, slithering from the shadows, whispering doubts into Jesus' ear. A serpent rises from the earth, but without hesitation, Jesus crushes it beneath his heel. This powerful act is a direct callback to the first promise of redemption made in Genesis. Every frame of the film carries deep, intentional meaning. Every shadow is purposeful. Every line of dialogue is rich with theological significance, designed to resonate with those who pay attention. The Passion of the Christ was never meant to be casually watched. Gibson created a cinematic experience that demands engagement, that forces the viewer to lean in, to engage deeply, and to confront something far greater than themselves. But there's more to the story, something that Hollywood desperately tried to suppress. During his conversation with Rogan, Gibson revealed a truth that most people refuse to acknowledge openly. It explains the incredible resistance that the film faced from the outset. Gibson noticed a turn within the industry, a double standard. Films that explored various religious traditions were treated with respect. They received nuanced portrayals, careful handling, and were often greeted with a sense of reverence. But when it came to Christianity, the response was radically different. Hollywood responded with skepticism, dismissal, and at times, outright hostility. Christianity was the one religion that Hollywood felt free to disparage. Gibson openly discussed the personal toll this resistance took on him. Studios that should have eagerly jumped at the chance to finance a project from an Oscar-winning director turned cold. Phone calls went unanswered. Meetings were abruptly canceled. Even colleagues who had worked alongside him for years began to distance themselves. The message could not have been clearer. This was not a story that Hollywood was willing to support. But Gibson didn't back down. His Catholic upbringing meant that this was far more than just a professional endeavor. It was a deeply personal mission. When traditional funding sources dried up, he didn't walk away from the project. Instead, he financed it himself, determined to bring the story to life. He assembled a team of believers who shared his vision and weren't intimidated by the controversy. What emerged from this determined effort shocked everyone. The Passion of the Christ became one of the highest-grossing R-rated films of all time, proving that there was a vast audience, millions of people, hungry for the kind of bold, uncompromising storytelling that Hollywood had insisted was irrelevant. But the making of this film was anything but ordinary. The events that unfolded during the production were nothing short of extraordinary. Jim Caviezel, who played Jesus, endured real physical suffering during filming, pain that translated into the raw emotion that is captured on screen. The cross Caviezel carried weighed more than 30 pounds. During one take, it dislocated his shoulder. In the scourging scene, Caviezel was struck by the actual whips twice. The force of the blows knocked the wind out of him and left his hands raw and bleeding. The pain he felt wasn't acting, it was real. And it's that authenticity that bleeds through every frame of the finished film. Then came the lightning. Assistant director John Michelini was struck twice during filming. Caviezel himself was reportedly struck during the crucifixion scene, but miraculously, he walked away unharmed. These events seemed impossible to explain, creating an atmosphere where the line between the natural and the supernatural felt dangerously thin. The crew began to wonder if something far beyond ordinary filmmaking was unfolding in front of them. The transformations didn't just happen on a physical level. Luca Lionel, who portrayed Judas, entered the film as an atheist. By the end of production, he had become a devout believer, profoundly impacted by the themes of betrayal and redemption. Maya Morgan-Stern, who played Mary, was secretly pregnant during filming, a quiet symbol of life and death, resurrection and renewal, interwoven with the very themes she was helping to tell. But perhaps the most extraordinary accounts came from reports of unexplained healings. A young girl with severe epilepsy went an entire month without a seizure after being present during filming. Others experienced a restoration of their senses. Whether these were divine interventions, remarkable coincidences, or psychological transformations, the cast and crew could not shake the feeling that they had participated in something far greater than a film production. One scene in particular encapsulates Gibson's artistic vision. After the crucifixion, Jesus' lifeless body rests in Mary's arms, echoing Michelangelo's famous Pieta. The composition captures both grief and grace, devastation and dignity, human sorrow and divine purpose. It transcends religious tradition, speaking to universal experiences of love, loss, and hope. When The Passion of the Christ finally reached theaters, it was met with sharp division. Roger Ebert, one of the most influential film critics of his time, awarded the film 4 stars, calling it the most intense and violent film he had ever seen. But controversy erupted from multiple directions. Religious leaders raised concerns about the potential for anti-Semitic interpretations, citing the historical weaponization of similar portrayals to justify persecution. Gibson responded firmly, stating that his intent was never to single out any group, but rather to show humanity's collective responsibility for Christ's death. For Gibson, the film was more than a historical retelling. It was a profound exploration of faith. He didn't craft a documentary. He created a deeply spiritual meditation on themes of guilt, redemption, and spiritual warfare. The film walked a fine line between historical representation and theological reflection, asking tough questions that demanded viewers reckon with the deeper truths of the story. And Gibson's journey doesn't end with this film. During his conversation with Rogan, Gibson revealed that he and screenwriter Randall Wallace had spent years developing a far more ambitious project, a film about the resurrection. This isn't a simple sequel. It's a cosmic exploration of the eternal battle between good and evil, spanning from the fall of the angels to the death of the last apostle. Gibson's vision is bold. He wants to reshape how we see these ancient stories. He believes the Gospels aren't just myth. They are history, validated by the unwavering testimony of the apostles, all of whom chose death rather than deny what they witnessed. Gibson's work isn't about preaching to the choir. It's about challenging skeptics and believers alike to wrestle with profound questions of existence, meaning, and what happens when life ends. His goal is to ask us all to grapple with these questions, questions that most films avoid entirely. The truth that shook Joe Rogan wasn't a single revelation. It was the weight of everything combined. It was the realization that Gibson's journey in creating The Passion of the Christ meant standing virtually alone against an industry that wanted to silence this story forever. It was the truth that supernatural events occurred during filming that defied all rational explanation. And perhaps most powerfully, it was the truth that art created with genuine conviction has the power to transform lives in ways that commercial entertainment can never achieve. Gibson's journey is rare, a refusal to compromise, a refusal to play it safe, a refusal to let industry gatekeepers dictate which stories should be told. The Passion of the Christ forces its viewers to confront uncomfortable realities about suffering, sacrifice, and redemption. It offers no easy answers, no reassuring pat on the back. Instead, it demands that we wrestle with difficult questions about human nature, divine purpose, and the price of salvation. And more than 2 decades after its release, it continues to provoke strong reactions, challenging us to confront questions that resonate deep within us all. In the end, The Passion of the Christ wasn't just a film. It was a testament to a man's unwavering commitment to telling a story that the world didn't want to hear. A story that, now more than ever, needs to be told. Every frame of The Passion of the Christ is infused with profound significance. Every shadow is carefully designed, and each line of dialogue is packed with theological depth, crafted to reward those who watch with sincerity and attention. This was never a film intended for passive spectatorship. Gibson didn't simply want audiences to sit back and observe. He aimed to create a cinematic experience that demanded active engagement, one that compelled viewers to confront something much larger than themselves, something that would stay with them long after the credits rolled. Yet there was more at play here, something that Hollywood, with all its influence, desperately tried to suppress. In his conversation with Joe Rogan, Gibson unveiled a truth that many refuse to confront openly, a truth that explains why the film faced such fierce, almost universal resistance from the moment it was conceived. Gibson observed a clear, persistent double standard within the industry. Films about various world religions, especially those exploring different faiths, were often treated with respect. They were approached with nuance, handled delicately and with care. However, when it came to films centered around Christianity, the reaction was drastically different. Skepticism, dismissal, and sometimes outright hostility were the norm. Christianity was the one religion that Hollywood felt free to criticize. Gibson spoke candidly about how this resistance affected him personally. Studios, which should have eagerly been fighting for a chance to finance a project from an Oscar-winning director, suddenly turned cold. Phone calls went unanswered. Meetings were canceled without explanation. Colleagues who had worked with him for years began to distance themselves. The message was unmistakable. This was not a story Hollywood was willing to support. Yet, Gibson remained undeterred. His Catholic upbringing meant this film wasn't merely a career project, it was a deeply personal mission. When the usual funding sources dried up, he didn't abandon the project. Instead, he financed it himself, putting everything on the line. He gathered a team of like-minded believers, people who shared his vision and weren't afraid to face the controversy head-on. What emerged from this dogged determination, despite overwhelming odds, became one of the highest-grossing R-rated films in history. The Passion of the Christ proved that there was a vast, untapped audience longing for the kind of bold, unapologetic storytelling that Hollywood's elite had insisted nobody wanted. But the making of this film was far from ordinary. The stories Gibson's aired during his interview with Rogan moved into territory that, at times, seemed almost unbelievable. Events that occurred on set defied all explanation. Jim Caviezel, who portrayed Jesus, endured real physical suffering during filming, pain so intense that it translated into the raw, authentic emotion that the audience felt on screen. The cross Caviezel carried weighed over 30 pounds. During one take, the weight caused his shoulder to dislocate. In the brutal scourging scene, Caviezel was struck with the whips, not for dramatic effect, but with such force that it knocked the breath from his lungs. His hands became raw and bloody. This wasn't acting, it was real, visceral pain. And then there was the lightning. Assistant director John Michelini was struck by lightning twice during the filming. Caviezel himself was struck during the crucifixion scene, yet miraculously walked away without a scratch. In biblical tradition, lightning represents divine power and judgment, a powerful symbol that appears at key moments throughout Scripture. The crew, bewildered, couldn't explain what was happening. These strange occurrences blurred the line between the natural and the supernatural, leaving everyone involved to question. Was something more than filmmaking taking place? Was this film, in some inexplicable way, being touched by a higher power? The transformations didn't stop with the physical events on set. Luca Lionel, who portrayed Judas, arrived at the production as an atheist. By the time filming wrapped, he had converted to Christianity, deeply moved by the spiritual themes of betrayal and redemption that his role forced him to confront. Maya Morgan-Stern, who played Mary, was secretly pregnant during filming, a quiet yet powerful symbol of the very themes the film explored: life, death, resurrection, and renewal. But perhaps the most remarkable of all were the reports of unexplained healings. A young girl with severe epilepsy attended the filming and went an entire month without experiencing a single seizure. Others reported miraculous restorations of their senses. Whether these events were divine interventions, remarkable coincidences, or psychological shifts, the cast and crew were left with an undeniable feeling that they had been part of something far beyond a mere film production, something profoundly spiritual. These occurrences weren't just isolated incidents. They were a powerful reminder that the making of the Passion of the Christ was not just a professional endeavor, but something larger, something that transcended the boundaries of conventional filmmaking. Whether through physical suffering, spiritual transformation, or inexplicable phenomena, the film had become a catalyst for change, not just within the industry, but in the hearts and minds of everyone involved. Gibson's refusal to compromise, his willingness to face down opposition, and his commitment to telling a story that Hollywood wasn't ready to tell, it all culminated in a film that demanded to be seen and reckoned with. The Passion of the Christ was more than just a movie. It was a powerful, tangible exploration of faith, suffering, and redemption that challenged not only Hollywood but audiences around the world to confront the deeper, often uncomfortable truths about humanity and the divine. And for those who were brave enough to face it, the film left an indelible mark that couldn't be easily forgotten. The story that Gibson fought so fiercely to tell wasn't just about Christ's suffering. It was about the transformative power of art, the enduring strength of faith, and the undeniable reality of divine intervention. Whether you believe in its message or not, the Passion of the Christ forced you to ask yourself, what are we willing to sacrifice to tell the truth? And what price are we willing to pay for that truth to be heard? One scene in the Passion of the Christ encapsulates Gibson's artistic vision more than any other. After the crucifixion, Jesus' lifeless body rests in Mary's arms, echoing Michelangelo's famous Pieta. The composition beautifully captures both grief and grace, devastation and dignity, human sorrow and divine purpose. It transcends the boundaries of religious tradition to touch on the universal experiences of love, loss, and hope. In this single image, the film offers more than just a portrayal of sorrow. It invites viewers to see the profound beauty in suffering and the divine in the most painful moments of life. When The Passion of the Christ was finally released in theaters, it was met with sharp division. Roger Ebert, one of the most influential film critics of his time, awarded the film 4 stars, calling it the most intense and violent film he had ever seen. Yet, controversy quickly followed from various quarters. Religious leaders expressed concern that the film could fuel anti-Semitic narratives, a fear based on the historical weaponization of similar portrayals to justify persecution. Gibson, however, responded with unwavering clarity, stating that his intent was never to blame any single group for Christ's death. Rather, he sought to highlight the collective responsibility of humanity. Every one of us is implicated in the crucifixion. For Gibson, this film was never just about historical events. It was about faith. He created it not as a documentary, but as a deeply spiritual exploration of themes like guilt, redemption, and spiritual warfare. It was a film that blurred the line between historical fact and theological truth, forcing viewers to confront tough, uncomfortable questions that demand reflection on the true meaning of sacrifice and salvation. But Gibson's journey doesn't end here. In fact, it's only just beginning. During his conversation with Rogan, he revealed that he and screenwriter Randall Wallace had been working for years on an even more ambitious project, a film about the resurrection. This project isn't just a typical sequel. It's a cosmic exploration of the eternal battle between good and evil, spanning the fall of the angels to the death of the last apostle. Gibson's vision isn't simply about recounting historical events. It's about reshaping the way we see these ancient stories. He believes that the Gospels aren't mythology but history, validated by the unyielding testimony of the apostles, each of whom died rather than deny the truth of what they witnessed. As Gibson puts it, who dies for something they know is a lie? For him, this question lies at the very heart of Christianity's supernatural claims. The resurrection, a man executed, buried, and then rising from the dead, is the ultimate challenge to the natural order of life. For Gibson, this isn't merely a matter of faith. It's about seeking a personal understanding. His work is not intended to preach to the already converted. Rather, it invites every viewer, skeptic and believer alike, to wrestle with deep questions about existence, purpose, and what happens after life ends. The truth that shook Joe Rogan wasn't a single revelation. It was the weight of the entire story. The realization that Gibson's journey in making The Passion of the Christ meant standing alone against an industry that wanted to bury this story forever. The truth that supernatural events unfolded during filming, events that no one could explain. And perhaps the most profound truth of all, that art created with genuine conviction can move mountains, touch hearts, and open minds in ways that commercial entertainment rarely, if ever, can. Gibson's journey is an anomaly, a refusal to compromise, to play it safe, and to allow industry gatekeepers to dictate which stories deserve to be told. The Passion of the Christ forces viewers to confront uncomfortable realities about suffering, sacrifice, and redemption, questions that most films shy away from. Even more than 2 decades after its release, the film continues to provoke strong reactions, pushing us to wrestle with deep, essential questions about human nature, divine purpose, and the cost of salvation. In the end, The Passion of the Christ wasn't just a movie. It was a testament to a man's unwavering commitment to telling a story that the world didn't want to hear. A story that, now more than ever, still needs to be told.